Welcome to CEC online lecture. Students, in this session, I will talk about sales territory. Let us first understand what is a territory. A territory is a particular grouping of customers or prospects assigned to an individual salesman. Now, why do we go for establishment of the territories? This is because every product has a definite market in which it is sold. It is therefore quite logical that the entire sales field is divided into small and viable areas. These areas are known as sales territory. So, the first reason or the first objective for which the territories are established is that they help you to properly cover the potential market. So, when you assign sales territory to the individual salespeople, what is happening? You are enabling them to cover the market more thoroughly in comparison to the situation where they are allowed to sell freely in any area. Also, what is happening in this case? You are enabling them to avoid spending their time in unnecessarily traveling and pursuing the activities in those areas of the market which do not have any sort of sales potential. We also see that the territories, they help you to improve customer relations. Now, when you establish distinct territories for the sales people, you are in fact giving them an opportunity to serve their customers in a better manner. They can improve the quality of their interaction with the key accounts. Now, why this is and how this is going to happen? Because students, the salesperson in that situation can route his call properly. He can meet his accounts on a regular basis. Even the customers will also look forward to the visit of the salesperson. Now, whenever there is a regularity in interaction, what is going to happen? The repeat orders are going to normally come up. If the regular salesperson is not there, then the orders can go to the competing firm. So what is happening? Not only you are serving the accounts in a proper fashion, but also these accounts are giving you repeat business. Now, when you get proper kind of performance in a given geographical area which is being assigned to it, you feel good about it. So this is another objective of establishing the territories, because they help in gaining the salesperson's interest and involvement in a given geographical area that is being assigned to him. So they are encouraged to function in a responsible manner, and even the management can have a proper assessment of what they are doing. So when salespeople have their own territories to work on, they know that they alone are responsible for the results of that particular territory, and therefore they take maximum efforts in the furtherance of the goals which are assigned to them with respect to that particular area. So in a way, we can also say that when you set the territories for people, they can concentrate on their job well, and it in an overall sense defines his or her sales job in a concrete and precise manner. Another objective which is served through the sales territory is that it helps the management in controlling the activities of the sales force. As I said, that you are assigning a different particular geographical area to an individual, so you can always keep a tab on his or her activities related in that particular area. So this acts as a control mechanism. you can always provide a list of customers to the person, and can ask him to meet those accounts of his territory on a regular basis. You can provide him with an instructions on the frequency of the calls for each of the key accounts. If you have a territorial structure in place, what what it is going to give you, it is going to give the management a proper evaluation of the salesperson's effectiveness, which can then be measured against the territorial potential, or by having distinct territorial quotas for the salespeople. And we have already seen this under quotas, that you can have the territorial quotas which help you to give a more focused assessment of the performance of each salesperson that is being assigned to that given area. In a way, we see that this also helps the management in taking care of the other selling and marketing activities. Like, for example, an assessment of the salesperson's performance in a given territory tells us that there is a better need to distribute the promotional material in any one particular zone or in one particular territory. Then the management can take efforts and can upscale their promotional spend or advertising spend in that particular territory, rather than focusing on the areas which do not require that kind of promotion. So in a way, what we are doing, we are better taking care of our sales and marketing activities by aligning them to those geographical areas where they are very much required. So in a way, this would also help in reducing your cost or optimally spending in the areas where the need for that spend is felt more. Now, students, after having understood what is a sales territory and what kind of specific objectives are served through establishment of territories, let us talk about the procedure of setting up of sales territory. Now, the ideal goal in the territorial design is to have all the areas or districts equal in terms of the sales potential also, and in terms of the workload of the various sales representatives. Now, when the sales potentials are equal, not only it becomes very easy to evaluate the performance, but also there are less chances of having any conflict between the salespeople or between the management and the task force. So what is going to happen when you want to achieve the objectives in a ideal kind of a situation, or in a better kind of a work environment, you should assign proper territories. You should establish proper territories which are established after taking into consideration all the aspects or all those factors which are going to affect the salespeople performance or render any sort of a variation in the performance of one person vis-a-vis the other based on the territories. So in a way, we can say that the establishment of proper territories becomes a very important exercise, and this exercise has to be carried out in a logical manner. Now, when we try to learn about the procedure which should be followed in this regard, we can broadly categorize the overall process into 5 broad steps or stages. The first stage, students, starts with selecting a control unit for the territorial boundaries. So, when we are establishing the territories, the first step is to select a geographical control unit that serves as a territorial base. Now, the common units that are used in this regard may be the states, or the cities, or even your zip or postal codes, or your metropolitan areas, even your trading areas. Now, a typical territory may comprise of several individual units. One person's zone may consist of different metropolitan areas, another may be composed of different kind of states. Now, the unit that you take into account should be kept small. Now, what is the reason of keeping the control unit small? One, when you have a small control unit, this is going to be helpful for the management in realizing the basic value which is being served through the territories. That is, pinpointing the potential of each of the territory becomes more feasible. Secondly, when you have the small control units, it is more easier for the management to adjust the territories. If a, say for example, if an organization wants to um, add something more to anybody's territory or anybody's area, that can also be done. If you want to reduce anybody's, then that kind of an adjustment can also be made better if you have a small control unit instead of having a bigger one. The second step, students, is to analyze the salespeople workloads. As I said earlier, when you are establishing the territory, one has to take into account the balance between two main dimensions. One is what is the difference in the potential of different territories, and second, what is the variation in the performance of different salespeople. Now, while you are fixing the territories for them, one has to analyze how the individual salespeople they differ in terms of their workloads. Also, one has to take into account the obvious variation which would exist in terms of the capabilities of the different salespeople, the kind of market conditions that they operate in, the kind of customers that you have in that particular territory, the past the sales that you were able to generate from that particular area. All this is going to take in is going to be taken into account while you are analyzing the workload, and depending on that you would be forming up the proper territories and assigning them to the salespeople. The third important step would be then to assign the salespeople to the territories. So after the territories have been established, the management is now in a position to assign individual salespeople to each of these areas or each of these districts. Now, up to this point, it is assumed that salespeople are equal in terms of their, potential that they can roll out, and they would perform equally and to the satisfaction of everybody. But then we know that this is not something which is really possible, nor is this a realistic assumption. So now what you do from henceforth, when you have assigned them the territory, the salespeople would be considered different in terms of the kind of effectiveness that they can generate from the efforts and from the sales turnover of their respective sales territory. Now, we also know and we have also seen that the selling executive's overall performance is going to depend on number of factors, like the kind of the product that he's selling, the kind of customer that he is dealing with, the experience that he holds, the kind of skills, even probably his energy levels and his some other qualities like taking initiative and working with a creative approach. It is also likely that one single salesperson can be successful in dealing with all these things in one territory, but he fails in the other, even though the sales potential and the workload may be the same in both the territories or in both the areas. And in this situation, then the salesperson's differences in performance may be influenced by certain other factors which may not be under his control, like the kind of the kind of market you are exposed to in terms of the environmental factors, in terms of the local taste and preferences of customers of that particular area, or any sort of religious or reasons, or the background. So while you are assigning the territories to the salespeople, the goal of the management should be very simple. You should try to place each and every individual in that particular area where he or she can contribute to the best of not only his ability but also to the company's profitability in the long run. Now, after you have done that exercise of assigning the salespeople to the territories, in the next stage, one has to craft a routing plan for the sales force. Now, this step is optional. You may have a routing plan for the sales force or may not explicitly rope in this as one of the stages while establishing the sales territory. Now, once you have carried out this procedure and you have established the sales territory, students, it is quite possible that you need to revise your territories on a regular basis. This requirement may arise due to the fact that as companies and as markets they operate, there is certain kind of changes which are likely to come up over the years. We operate in a very dynamic kind of a business environment. So nothing is stable and static. So the conditions that the salespeople are exposed to, the conditions that the companies are exposed to, their size and scale of operations, and the certain limiting factors which may change from one time period to the other and may be very complex for one industry but may not be that challenging for the other. Due to all these reasons, it then becomes especially important that the territorial structures or the territorial framework, they become outdated after a while, and there is then a need to revise them. Obviously you would be following a similar kind of a procedure that you would be using while establishing the territories in the first place. So you can imagine how difficult and how tedious the revision exercise could be, and therefore because of this it is usually considered to be a difficult job, and therefore no management or company actually looks forward to revising their territories on a regular basis. It is only when it becomes an absolute must, or they feel that over a period of time the territories are not giving them due returns, or despite making all sorts of efforts, the sales representatives still are not able to roll out good sales turnover, or they are not able to meet the targets that are being assigned to them for that particular territory, there is a need to revisit the territorial structure. Now, what the management has to importantly follow in this regard, the management has to necessarily take into consideration the fact that one should avoid having overlapping territories. At the same time, when you are doing this assessment should be done afresh after taking into account all those changes or all those limiting factors in the performance of the salespeople, or in their approach of not still being able to meet their territorial quotas, that the revisit exercise is carried out. So, all in all, what we are aiming at that the establishment of territories, every time you do it, whether you do it the first time when you were establishing it, or whenever you do it, if there is a need to revisit based on the changes which are taking place in the market conditions or in the conditions of the task force or the organization as a whole, there is some benchmark, there is something that you are falling back on. And usually, students, it is seen that salespeople use the company records of past sales or trade directories, even the list that is being maintained by the professional associations, the directories of the corporations, certain periodicals that are being maintained, and even at times rely on their personal observation to identify the sales territories. Once the potential accounts are identified, the next logical step is always to estimate the total sales potential. So those with the highest sales potential, they are designated as categories. Now, the the A or the primary kind of an accounts are the ones which, as I said, they have the maximum sales potential, and therefore they these are the territories which usually require most of the salesperson's time. Then once you have your category A with you, you can work on category B and then category C accounts. The salesperson usually makes a decision with respect to which accounts to approach first in order to make the sales calls, which he has to meet in person, which he can approach through the telephone or through the other ways. All in all, those kind of customers who fall in those territories which turn out to be more promising, or which seem to be very promising because of the potential that they hold, they should always be um, prioritized in terms of the fact that the salespeople should always make personal visits and should always indulge in personal interactions with the accounts situated in those territories, because even these territories may be small in number and they are less in comparison to others, but if you focus your due attention on these kind of territories, they are going to provide maximum profitability and return to the enterprise. So all in all, students, through this session we have learned about the importance of sales territory, what are the objectives that they serve, and how they are established. We have also seen that a due assessment of a sales representative's performance can be made by making an evaluation of performance across the territories that are assigned to them, similarly across the customers, and similarly across the product and the product line. What we mean is that each and every aspect in your sales program is very important. You cannot afford to ignore either the product or the customer or the area, because every factor is contributing something or is influencing in some way to the overall prosperity and profitability of the enterprise. So students, after doing this session, we have wrapped up the main portions related to an assessment of the salesperson's performance in terms of taking care of the budgets, quotas, territories, forecasting. Now, in the subsequent session, we would talk about a very relevant topic in personal selling, that is, what are the modern approaches. Now, in contemporary times, we see that the selling approach has undergone a change. So, probably what used to work in the past probably is not going to work in future, and a modification in the approach and the way in which we have looked at these concepts from beginning till this particular session, they need to be revisited and they need to take into account how the selling can make use of certain modern tools and techniques to be effective. So in the subsequent session, we are going to conclude the personal selling topic by looking at the modern approaches of selling, Also, I will talk about the various career options that are open in the field of personal selling. I hope that at the end of this particular lecture, you would have gained good understanding of sales quotas. Till we come back with another interesting topic in line, please take very good care of yourself. Thank you so much for attending this session.